Good morning, citizens. Welcome back to the channel. Today I got a special one for you for two reasons. We are going to be exploring using a controller to play Star Citizen. I know it's been a pain point for a lot of people. Just in case you don't like mouse and keyboard, I do play the game with mouse and keyboard, but I am exploring ways, especially for the org, to have a controller setup that works for people that are just more comfortable with that platform. So we're going to explore that today. I can tell you, yes, it does work. If you have an Xbox Elite controller, the one with the paddles on the back, the Series 2, and a chat pad that you can click into the bottom of it. I'm specifically using the MOKO RGB Chatpad. That way you get keyboard function on the base of the controller. And then if you go into your Windows settings, you can actually set the rear paddles to keyboard bindings. So you can put your Alt on the back paddle, which I have done. You can put F on the back paddle, which I have done, which allows you to navigate your menus more easily, click your floors, because it's not really programmed in there. The legend that CIG has in there for controller support is not correct. Some of the functions are in there and they do work. Some of them are completely off. So I'm here to hopefully give you a little bit of insight, and through some setup of your own, you can set it up any way that you want. That way you have full control in Star Citizen, except for one thing, and this is the caveat. You do not have any ability in your inventory to click and drag, or also split and carry and things like that. So you will need a mouse only for your inventory. Say if you're looting bodies, or you're in your inventory inside of your hangar, or you're moving things around, maybe you need to pull out a drink. You can take your helmet off and do all that stuff on the chat pad, but you need the click and drag function of a mouse, which just isn't in there for a controller yet. I've tried every option, but that to me is not a reason to not use the controller if that's your preferred platform, because usually when you're doing an inventory situation like that, it's not a high stress situation. So you could take the time, take your hand off the controller, you're not moving around anyway, and then you can do all your inventory and possibly get a drink or do whatever you need to do within the inventory screen. So here we go. Let's get into it. Once again, I'm going to be using the MOKO Chatpad with the Xbox Series X controller. Now you'll see I have full look, full ability. If I hit my Alt button, which I have programmed to the left rear bumper, the lower one, and then I hit H, so that's actually Alt H. There we go. I have my ability to take on and off my helmet. And having the chat pad also allows you to do the simple functions like just open your inventory. And you can navigate around it, using the controller, but you just don't have the function to click and drag. So if I were to need to bring something over from my personal inventory, or say, I need to, split, my luck strength that I have over there, that's not going to be an option. That's where you're going to need the keyboard. But every other function in the game does work. You also have the ability to hit, all your main buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to bring up your weapons, bring up your tractor beams, your heals, and then boom. So you can also either do two things. The way this is set up is you can, just hold your X button, which is programmed in there, and it does work to put away your items. So, a lot of the functions do work on the controller that are the simplified ones, I want to say. It's really when you get into the ship to where you're going to experience quite a bit of programming difficulty as far as what CIG has done. So, you have your jump, you have, your crouches, I can bring up my gun. Everything works. Now, normally when you're programmed into this, you do have your F button. Now, see, I do have an F. That is the left side on the panel, on the back of the controller. But the weird thing is it's a momentary button. But it still does work for hitting buttons to open doors and do things like that. Maybe select a ship within your hangar. So, on the left-hand side, on the rear of the Xbox controller, the lower one is Alt, and the upper paddle is going to be F. And the right ones I really don't have programmed to anything. You could make them Control, you could make them, whatever quick function you want to make them. Because the ability with the chat pad being hooked in there, I now have keyboard functionality. Now, I'm going to give you one more clue when you're actually setting this up. These chat pads are momentary switches, which means if I hold down F on the chat pad, see how it disappears? Because it's a single click. That is what a momentary switch is. So, when you're doing things like, you're jumping in space, and, you have to hold long press B. Well, just go into your options menu on your keyboard side and change it from a long press B to just a press B. And therefore, you're allowing the momentary switch on the chat pad to access and get you into quantum drive, SCM mode, nav mode, and things like that. So that's a quick, simple solve like that. You don't really need to change your hold Y to exit seat, because the way I have programmed in it, I have B as my crouch, right? And prone. When I'm in the ship, you have your L1 button, or what would be your left bumper on Xbox. Now, MOKO does make this chat pad for both PlayStation and Xbox controllers. So if you are a PlayStation controller aficionado, you totally prefer that controller, they do make it for that too. So this is completely viable, if you're playing on PC and using a PlayStation controller. You'll just have to transpose, your X, Y, A, B, over to your circle, square, triangle, O, and things like that. Your L1 and L2 would be, left bumper, left trigger, for Xbox and things like that. But they do make it, and it will work 100%. So back to what I was saying was, exiting seat on things like that. Normally you would hit and hold Y on the keyboard to get up out of your seat. Well, you don't really need to do that, because you can just, if you're going to be familiarizing yourself with what the controller setup is, either your L1 or your LB on Xbox is your modifier button. And what that does is that gives secondary functions to your controller buttons. So to get up out of seat, you just hold, left bumper and B, and that will get you out of your seat. And the way I've set that up is because primarily on most games, B is considered a back out button on, the controller setup for an Xbox. So when you're going through these settings, you can customize and tailor the way you want to control your ship, And when you're flying, the versatility, mouse and keyboard is great. I love it and I use it. But for those that are more comfortable flying, you almost get a semi-HOSAS, hands-on stick and stick setup within this. So it's very beneficial, if you're used to, and you want to do some dog fighting and things like that. So as you can see, I'm fully running around. And the second little thing is I picked up myself this beauty. She is absolutely massive. This is the 890 jump. So today we're going to be not only using the controller and showing you the functions of that, but we're going to be taking this girl out for a spin. And boy, is she a big girl. But she is absolutely beautiful. So the 890 jump is classified, as an extra large ship. It does have a storage down below, which I'll show you. And it also does have a bay up on top on the deck of the front, which allows other ships to be nested inside of it. So you can nest your smaller ships all the way up to, I believe, a prospector will fit in here. So if you really want to take, a secondary ship out to maybe do mining, or maybe you want to take, the salvation out and do some salvaging, or you can actually nest up on the front deck here once I actually get up there. And this ship is absolutely beautiful. It is the pinnacle of luxury that Origin made. I have done the Phoenix, Constellation Phoenix, which is also a luxury liner also, but this one by far beats it out by a mile. So let's get into the ship here and I'll show you. So we're just going to take the elevator here. So I think we just stand here. Would that be it? I don't even know how to get in this ship. Is there a button? Oh, call elevator. Okay, there we go. So there's no physicalized button on the ship. You guys are learning this with me just the same, so. Down comes the elevator. So you can see right there that it also changed the icon to RB, and RB is programmed in through them. It is you can see that CIG has put in some controller stuff, but using the chat pad allows you to expand everything that you can do and not be hamstrung with always going to a mouse and keyboard combo with the controller. That having this chat pad in there allows you so much more functionality. And then the only thing you need the mouse for is your inventory, and you can see at any time I can freely grab my mouse and move it or use my controller. So let's take the elevator up and we'll do a quick tour of this ship. I am extremely excited today to take this girl for a ride. I have wanted this ship since I started playing, and luckily one of my org mates, Sins, was doing a giveaway, and I got gifted enough money to go and buy it. So, alright, moving here into the main entrance vestibule. These are 2 docking collars. Okay, we got docking collars off to the left and right. Okay, they are sealed, so you can actually not kill your whole crew when you open it up. And as you can see, you can step out here. Absolutely awesome. Alright, so let's close this up. I imagine it's going to be a duplicate on the same side. This, I believe, does have dual docking. Oh, can we close this one? Yep. Maybe we can seal everything in. And let's just verify that this is also docking on this side. Yep. So we can dock either side of the ship. And now we move into the grand entrance. Okay, it appears we have 2 rooms here, one on the left and the right. Let's check the right one first. Oh, nice bedroom. Look at this. Checkers board. You can play checkers. Look at that. You can actually play checkers. Nice full bench seat. Now, this ship has not gone through its gold pass, so it does not have all the componentry and things like that. So the textures are a little outdated. They're not as fine in detail. So I imagine, once they get done with it, they're going to release it. And then we have a bed here for bed logging. All right. Look at that. Nice little terrarium inside. Now, I do believe, see, there is the function of, holding that modifier, left bumper or L1, and then hitting Y, and that is what the, the perspective change is. So if you want to go into third person here or first person, I prefer first person, but sometimes, for cinematics, I do enjoy, changing everything. So I imagine this is just a duplicate here on our bedroom. Yep. Oh, but this one's got a chessboard. Look at that. So this ship is primarily your ultra luxury liner. This would be a great place for fellow org mates and people to hang out. Say you just want to cruise the verse, maybe do a little bit of light stuff. No, no heavy combat. By no means would I take this ship into combat. It does have weapons to protect itself. Okay, so I imagine this was on the other side too. I just happened to miss it. So we do have a full shower and restroom, toiletries. Excellent. Little hangar. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, now moving on. Still staying in the central area here. We have a little seating area to relax and chill out. This is going to be heading towards our engineering. So we're going to have two entrances to engineering. I imagine they're just going to connect in a Y format. We have a sauna here. Oh, look at that. That's nice with a little spa. Take a dip if you want. Dry off towels. We're gonna have to get someone to maybe put a bottle of champagne down here or something for the fellow org mates. So as you can see, this is all set up for players that are going to want to enjoy the finer things in life. Full-on sauna. And then dual shower here. Wow, this ship is absolutely beautiful. I think I might, use this quite frequently. I do combat. I do enjoy it, but I like the mining. I like the cargo hauling and things like that. This does have a very large cargo hull, that's loaded into the hull. Okay, now we actually have a pool with some lounging area. Are these able to be sat upon? Oh, yes, they are. Okay. So the functionality of the ship is still there. They're just, I guess, waiting on the gold pass, which is going to have to come soon because as they inch closer to the 1.0 release of the game, they got to button certain things up and, make their gold standards and, have what they have on their table now more refined and tuned and things like that. So, all right, before going up, let's head down. We'll go down to the engineer room and we'll see, maybe they have, the componentry slots and everything there. Oh, escape raft. Look at that. Okay, so there is an eject for the ability for, what is it? It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 people times 2, so that would be 8. At least 8 crew, and I would imagine it might be mirrored on the other side too, so possibly up to 16. We'll see that. We'll see if that's true. So, okay, we'll call the elevator and head on down to the engineering section of the ship. Escape raft. So that's going to bring me down to the escape raft. So where would this elevator come from? That's escape. There's no other button, no other thing. I thought that might possibly be an elevator to go down, but I guess not. another. Okay, this is where we're going to go down for the engineering. Okay, so now we're down in the engineering. Okay, so that is going to be our cargo loading right there, I believe. And that will drop down to the ground next to the elevator that we entered the ship in. That's going to lead to cargo. What is this going to be? Call elevator. Let's head this way. Okay, so up it's going to go to the foyer, bar, lounge, and dining. D1 is going to be the spa and the pool, which we were, and ground 0 is going to be the hangar. Okay, so it does have another elevator. This is going to head to the hangar. This ship is absolutely massive. What do we have here? Is this going to be the medical facility? Yes, it is. Okay, so we do have a med bed here. So that allows you to set your spawn point and some storage, so you can store extra med gels in there. It does have med gels, 400 of 400, so that is the ability to respawn 4 separate individuals. So let's go ahead and let's log into this. And we're going to go and set for regeneration. And we're going to transfer it to the 890 jump. Now, as you can see, I'm using my left paddle along with my right stick to get to the options on the menu. And again, my left upper paddle is F, which you would normally use within the game on the keyboard and mouse to do all your, looking selections. So, all right, so we now have that set. But you'll see it's not viewable constant, and the actual cursor kind of skips. That's due to the polling rates and I believe some of the programming in CIG. Even though I'm constantly holding the F button and you can see, that the cursor stays there, it's not really 100% there all the time, but you can still see it and follow its trail until you get to the actual function that you need to see to back out of that. So now we have our spawn point set here, so that way when we take this girl out for, a mission, if anything happens to us, we'll be able to, Now, some of the doors are automatic, some of them are actually RB or, F function openable. So a nice little waiting lounge. I like the little touches here with the, with all the glass and the plants, and it really gives the ship quite the luxury feel. Okay, what do we have going this way? Airlock control. Okay, so now we are down in the lower cargo area. Or no, this would be the upper cargo area on the front of the ship. We are now in the bow of the ship. We do have a basketball court here, which doubles. We'll see what this terminal is. These are grids right here for holding all of these. So you can lock cargo down on these, along with the main center. So what do we have here? This is going to open up the hangar doors. And that's going to get us access to nest our ship in here nicely if we choose, or maybe we want to do cargo or whatever it may be. Now, in the future patch for 4.8, or it might be 4.8, I'm not sure, they were recently talking about allowing this to refuel, restock, rearm, and repair ships that come into it, just like a standard hangar would be. So that's going to be exciting. This ship is going to gain quite a bit of versatility, if that's the case, because, then, say you want to, be able to, work with your org and carry materials, ships, and do things like that. This is going to be a good ship to not bring into combat, but let's just say park it off a little bit. You know, maybe you're going to have an Idris, you know, maybe a Polaris or a Perseus or something like that. This can be off in the distance, so, you know, your org mates can still come and, you know, maybe they want to refuel, or they need to rearm or something in a dogfight, and, you know, that way you're going to be able to add to the teammate, but you by no means would do any combat in this yourself. And it's also a mobile spawn point for other players, so as long as you have enough medgel and people pass, well, then guess what? You can keep reviving them, and, you know, keep okay, so that is another hangar door one. Okay, so let's see if we can close these doors up. Close hangar door. And you can seal whatever ship you bring inside. There are quite a number of ships that do fit in here. I know the Prospector fits, the Salvage fits, you know, your C8R Pisces if you want to have a medical ship fits. It does fit an Avenger Titan, which is a starter ship, which I'm sure most people have. I mean, that is pretty much the ship that almost everyone chooses upon initially purchasing the game. So when we came in, I believe we came in through this door right here. Yes, that would be the airlock. So what do we have back here? Is this... Okay, so that's going to go to what? A turret. Okay. So that's going to bring us to the turret, which is on the upper side. So, you know, it adds a little bit more defensive capability. So that's hangar doors. How would you actually lower this? Would that have to be done through the controls on the top up there? Because remember, we did have view. I imagine that might be it. And now we can head into the actual bow of the ship. Okay, another set of turrets. Okay, so it has turrets on both sides. Let's take that up, actually. Get a look at the defensive systems on the ship. Ah, no, you closed on me, buddy. What are you doing? Open up. So again, I am doing all this through controller and the chat pad. A lot of the things are, you know... Okay. Wow, look at that. Okay, so that allows us to have a... Now, as you could see, you know, in the lower right, for me to lower back down from that terminal, it was, you know, the same as exit C, LB, and then B, and hold them. Where would I actually lower this? Because I'm only seeing turret access. Hangar access, there we go. So you can do that through your inner thoughts, and by getting to your inner thoughts on controller, you just hold right bumper. Come on, you did it again. So yeah, when you hold RB, you know, you will actually go into your inner thoughts, which will allow you to select options with, you know, whatever you may want to do. Okay, so we enter through that door on the right. We've seen the turret right there. Now let's exit through the door on the left here, and this should just make a nice big loop for us to get back. I imagine this is going to be componentry in here. We do have EVA pods, so you can exit and spacewalk. Now we're coming into... Oh, this is completely different. Look at this. Nice lounge area. Imagine this is going to be the kitchen. Oh, and these are individual beds for the crew. Look at that. Look at that. I do believe eventually they're going to allow NPCs to crew the ship to help you maintain. We do have our kitchen right here. None of this is physicalized, but I'm sure they're going to be putting in, you know, coffee machines and things like that. Microwave, whatever, to make yourself food. Maybe a fridge to store, because I don't see any storage in here. And, oh, here we go. This is the full kitchen setup. This ship is very impressive. I mean, even though it's not in its gold state, this thing is absolutely stunning. This is a fully workable, livable ship. This is the crew kitchen. Got more escape pods over here. Yep. What's in here? Okay, this is the panic room right here. This room along from the bridge also allows the pilot and 2 co-pilots to fully control and man the ship. And this door is lockable. This is a panic room right here for this ship. And then more escape pods down here for the VIPs that you could possibly be carrying. Okay. So this was upper hangar again. Yep, so we did just make a nice big loop around. So there is an elevator. I'm thoroughly impressed with this ship. I can't wait to take this thing out for some flights and do some stuff. This might just be a livable ship for me, and you know, and depending upon the situation that the org may need, I may load this up with fighters, or maybe I'll load it up with a mining vehicle or a salvage vehicle, you know, and have this be, you know, the home base, because you are able... Uh-oh, server error in the game. Hopefully it solves itself. So I'd be able to customize how I'm going to use the ship, and you know, since they added the ability to jump to your org mates' ships, then it will allow people to use this as, you know, a support ship, a very large support ship. Or if I just want to take it out on my own and say, you know, I want to have a big mothership and, you know, use that for the, you know, the fuel to, you know, quantum jump or something, and then, you know, take out the, you know, say I want to take out the vulture and I want to go out and I want to do a little bit of scraping and, you know, get some RMC and all that stuff. So we'll see, you know, how many game loops you can actually incorporate this ship in, especially if you know, you might want to live on it. Although I, you know, I don't know, you know, if you would want to lose all of your protected materials and guns and weapons and things by storing everything on there. But, you know, I'm sure there are people that, you know, that do that. Okay, we'll give it another minute here and then we'll see if it clears itself. Able to escape. Yeah. So it still is able to read. I'm just not able to move right now. Sometimes the servers do correct themselves. I mean, the game still is an alpha, so that, you know, there are things that happen, especially with the big changes coming in the next patch. You know. they need to get, Squadron 42 released, so that's getting, the majority of the attention right now in games. That is expected by the end of the year. So I don't really mind, that, they are still updating and doing things within Star Citizen, but they're not even having a Citizen Con this year. They just made that announcement because they really want to buckle down and get the game set. Okay, it doesn't look like it's going to clear itself. We're just going to exit the menu and then we'll reload back in. Sorry about that technical difficulty, folks, but that's kind of beyond my control. Go, now we'll just reload back into the universe. Enter Star Citizen. So yeah, the ability for this ship, not just as, a hauler of cargo and a luxury ship, there are going to be multiple uses for it, especially being able to rearm small fighters and things like that when you're out with an org, and you have multiple ships. People are running, light fighters, medium fighters that could fit inside of there, just for the purpose of refueling and rearming themselves. Now, it's not going to be an automatic thing. It doesn't mean that, I'm just going to be able to, rearm and refuel. You're going to have the resources on the ship. So, I'll put, a couple SCU cargo containers down below, filled with those ordnance and those things. That way, when people do come in, they'll be there. I'll have, your S1, S2, and S3, missiles, and, your size 1, size 2, and size 3, ammo, and, maybe somebody wants to swap out, from a laser weapon to an actual ballistics weapon, and, they'll be able to do that. Hopefully, they'll be able to, take those the componentry that I have stored in it. Maybe they're going to need fuses or something like that. RMC, that way, they can do ship repair when they're out in the field, or, I mean, it's limitless, really. The scope of this game, really, it's unlike anything I've ever seen, but it's something I've always wanted. Taking quite a bit to get back onto the servers. I don't know if maybe they took them down to do some patching. Nope, we're good. Okay, so we're right back in the mix here. Okay, so we'll go all the way back up to the foyer here. What is it? Floor 1, pool and spa, foyer, bar, and dining. Okay. So as you can see, now we're up in the foyer bar area. Back right where the tables and everything were. On level 2 of the ship here. So as we go into this area, this is going to be, what, lockers, I would imagine? Maybe weapon lockers, possibly? Nope, restrooms. Okay, we got some restrooms there. Chill out area, another large bed. The crew can fight over who gets what rooms, who's getting the tiny rooms, who's getting the big ones. That is not up to me. Absolutely beautiful looking. Beautiful ship. Okay, so We are up here on the 3rd level now. A little bit of an observation deck. Seating for everyone. Okay. So what do we have back here? Simple viewing area. Oh, that's going to be looking into the captain's quarters over there. We're at the rear of the ship. This is attractive. This must be the captain's quarters. Yep. Yep, this is the captain's quarters on the back side of the bridge. So as we travel to the bow, we're going to be heading towards the I have my own personal bar, personal kitchen area. This little painting of my ship here. This will loop right back around and out. Yep. Okay, so this is completely my area here as the captain. Chess table set up. Almost done with the tour here. We're going to go to the bridge. Here we go. Absolutely beautiful. Origin ships are classy for sure. Okay. Let's get in the pilot seat here. Now remember, I am doing this all with the controller and the chat pad. So. Alright, so we're going to have to, turn the ship on, right? I just hit U on the chat pad like I would on the keyboard. And then what I do is I can hold my lower left rear paddle, which is my Alt button, then hit N. You are all clear to leave. And that takes care of your hangar request. Now if you want to change your perspective again, like I did before on the character, it's the same. You just hold your left bumper and hit Y. And now you have the ability to open your hangar doors. And then your controls for the actual ship are just the standard. I have not changed any of those whatsoever.
Looks like you're on your way. It was great being able to help you, and I hope you're able to visit us here at New Babbage again real soon.
Now, I have two ways of opening the doors, actually. What you can do is you can hold that left bumper modifier and hit down on the D-pad, because that's open doors. But without the modifier, just hitting down on the D-pad will bring up the landing gear. So I kept those two functions right on the same thing. I just added the modifier button, the left bumper button, or L1 on the controller if you're using PlayStation. That way you can, some things I just double replicated because I'm just making things as easy as possible. So you can see that this girl is so large that, she does have a quite a big sweep, so she controls unlike any other. It gives you a predicted path, as you can see here in front, to more easily navigate a ship of this size. I do believe this is the only ship that has that function. And your controls are standard. Now, by hitting your right stick and clicking it in, you'll see that when I hit on my right stick left and right, that is my, roll. But if you click down on the stick, now everything on the right stick is just look directional, and then your left stick is your thrust and your roll. That's the way I prefer it, but you do it whatever way you want to do it. But that is inherently programmed in. That is nothing that I changed whatsoever. That is done by CIG within their control scheme. When you do have a controller plugged in, you can switch where you want your roll to be, whether it be your left or your right stick. I just prefer roll on my left stick. And then your standard functions like thrust are, press in your left stick and things like that. So, and your standard weapons are also on your right trigger, and then your left trigger is your fine look. You can also use your F key here, see, and I can fully get to all my power management if you look. So once again, using that paddle and making it an F on the rear of the controller, I do have the ability to engage, my standard look, so I can, get to my MFDs, and maybe I want to, change the power output on the engines or the cooling or, whatever it may be for the situation that I'm in. Ship is just absolutely beautiful. One other thing, since this is a momentary switch, I cannot do Z free look, and here I'll just give you, so if you want to change the angle that you're looking, you would hold Z and use your mouse. You don't have that function again because it's not programmed in as a fully press to hold. The switches on the chat pad are momentary, so if you did want to, say, trim your view and maybe make things more cinematic, or make sure you have clearance where where landing, that is another function that you'll have to do with in the keyboard itself. But this girl is slow for sure. She's a big ship. I mean, you can see her cruising speed is only 109, and then under boost, we'll see what she gets to. Yeah, it's just going to top out at maybe 275, 300. 267, still pushing. 270. And that's in your SCM mode. So if I were to go to nav mode, here, let's switch. See, now that I have B, oh, no power. Server error again. Wow, I can't believe this. Not making the game look good. This is rare. I've never seen this, especially on an early morning. We'll see if it clears itself. If not, we'll jump right back in the game. It should allow us just to continue off where we are. I mean, the game is communicating. You can see in the global chat, it's still rolling by, so. I'm mainly doing this just for controller players. I went out and picked up a Elite 2 controller. And I really saw there wasn't anybody in the space that had a definitive yes or no, you can play this game with a controller. And I wanted to make one to help people, because hopefully it'll help, ease people into the game. I was a console gamer for pretty much my entire life. Just to give you an idea, I played on the original Atari 2600. You know, I've been gaming for 40 years, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, as this game moves closer and closer, that more people can spark interest and be like, oh, you know, I'm scared of a mouse and keyboard, or, you know, and you don't have to be, you know, you'll learn it. You know, it took me, I want to say, a good solid 3 months to where I'm starting to feel comfortable now using a mouse and keyboard. But you know, I did want to have a controller. That way, you know, say I want to be lazy, because, you know, my PC goes to not only my workstation here, but it's tied into my 65-inch TV. So, you know, if I just want to pick up my controller and say I want to sit on the couch with my dog, you know, I have that ability. I don't have to, you know, pull out the whole, you know, I have a click-in lap, you know, thing where my keyboard kicks in. It's got a built-in mouse pad and all that. If I don't want to have that and I just want to be relaxed, then I could just pick up the controller, turn it on, boom, and that's it, and start playing the game. You know, as long as I'm not doing any inventory functions or anything, then it really doesn't matter. And at that point, I have a wireless mouse, and I could just take the mouse over with, you know, a mouse pad and just put it on the cushion of the couch right there and just leave it be. And if I need to do any kind of inventory function, well, then I can do it right there. So, all right, let's go back to menu, reload in. So again, I'm doing all this with controller. That cursor that you saw was not mouse. You know, they do have quite a bit of the functions programmed in, just not all of them. And that legend is not even close. Again, this is all, you know, with the left stick, I'm doing this. They just don't have the legend that matches up to what it's supposed to do. They have you hitting, like, you know, both LB and RB at the same time to turn on missiles on a ship, and that's not right. I rebound that to, you know, targeting is up on the D-pad while I'm flying, and then to activate missiles or scanning or things, I hit right on the D-pad. That way I can change, you know, whatever I'm in as far as, you know, scanning or, you know, things for mining and things like that, along with the functionality that I have for the chat pad. Yep, there we go.
Origin jump works at your service. Core system operational. Engines active. Quantum fuel 100%.
So you can see it is 100% controllable. And then I'll head back down to the planet, and we'll park this bad girl. That way you can see all the functions of getting it, you know, able to be parked. Yep, there it is, right below us. You know, and the same thing goes for first-person shooter. It's smooth. You can use it all. You know, you can hit R to reload, or you can just hold X, or you know, tap X to reload. You know, hold X, and it'll put your weapon away. You know, your look, you know, all your functions are still the same. You know, crouch, jump, you know, lean. Lean is very awkward in the game because they do have so many functions. You actually, to lean left, you would have to hit your modifier button, your LB, and then, you know, you would click in your left stick, and then LB and click in your right stick to lean right. So it took me a while to get used to that. You know, I've been trying this for, I want to say, about a week now, trying to get this control scheme and everything up. So if you are interested in exactly what my binds are, just leave a comment. And, I will take, shots of all my bindings as far as the controller and mouse and keyboard. That way you can see on the mouse and keyboard side which ones you need to change from, press and hold to just press, which is mainly just your B button. And it changes no functionality. There's zero conflict with anything as far as going from, quantum drive to, um, SCM mode. It doesn't interfere with anything. I'm really actually quite surprised on why they made it hold B. You can see this really isn't a ship that you want to use for, everything. But if you're in a slow, relaxed state, and maybe you want to hang out, go do some exploration, bring some buddies. You guys are laughing, hanging out. Not really doing missions, and you could just be the pilot and take them out. Go for a little joyride. Okay, we should be able to. We'll go back into that, and now I'll show you how we can hail the landing.
Here we go. Got a spot all for you.
So that time I did it the other way. Instead of using the chat pad, I actually used my left bumper and down on my D-pad. We're just going to put down our landing gear here by hitting just down on the D-pad.
Landing gear deployed.
I can get this in here. This is my first time parking and flying this ship, so.
To inform you that your space request has been cancelled.
Oh.
Please contact us again if you...
Too slow. This thing is too slow. Alright, we'll go up here and we'll let them close that bay. We'll request another one. This thing is very lumbering. For sure. I have not played with the Idris or any of the other larger ships, so I'm wondering, relative to speed, what they would be like. Okay, let's put another landing request in.
Hello again. I think you already have a space assigned to you. Yes, there it is. Feel free.
You told me I wasn't able to land in it. What are you doing to me here, folks? Is that it? that's his spot.
Hello again.
Oh, now I gotta wait in queue probably, because I'm holding up the line. There we go. Wow, even under boost, this thing only does 50.
Landing gear raised.
No, no. That's almost bad. Boy, this thing is shaky big.
Great. Your vehicle should be all set.
Wow. Let's check and see how good that was. I mean, I'm definitely not centered by any means, but... Oh my god. Alright, let's back her up a little bit here.
Launch complete.
Back a little bit here. Okay, now set her back down.
Landing complete.
Okay.
Engines inactive.
And then once again, like I said in the beginning, you know, B is crouch and all that stuff, but if you hold left bumper and then hold B, that's going to get you up out of your seat. So all your functions are there. You can set them up and change them. A lot of the ones that are there from CIG that do work, I just kept as is. I did not change. So if you see something programmed in with the controller, I really didn't change any of that. I just added certain things like your, targeting system and your switching to missiles and all those, various functions, along with changing your B from hold B to go into nav and SCM mode to just pressing B. That way, when I'm on the chat pad, I have the ability to, just tap B on my chat pad, and then it'll switch my modes. So yes, to answer anyone's question, a controller 100% works. Are you cheating? You could say I'm misleading on the, oh, but you have a chat pad connected to it. Well, I mean, just look up the MOKO RGB. It's not a very expensive item. And if you're really invested in playing Star Citizen, it's well worth the cost. And you don't want to learn mouse and keyboard, or say you just want to do some couch gaming or things like that. Then I would definitely highly recommend it. I would highly recommend it. All right, let's see if I parked it good enough to see if the elevator doesn't eat it, right? Okay, so you could do it two ways here. You could do it through the programmed back button of F that I have, and it gets me in, or you could have done it through R and B right there. So, I'm gonna hold F, and then I can just scroll down. Hold the back button, the top rear paddle on the controller, and then using the right stick, I can, get it to there, and then store. And then you just back yourself out of it. Hey, we did park it well enough so it didn't munch it up and eat it. But that, my friends, will show you that, a controller with a chat pad connected into it. Years ago, Microsoft, pretty much invented the chat pad way back in the day. And it was a very rudimentary system. It was, pretty much just used for the online functions and things like that. But, after doing a little bit of thought about it and, how can I, make another input work? And there's so many aftermarket products that, you're able to use them. So, the controller, is connected to the PC. And the MOKO Chatpad is connected just through a USB dongle. 2.4, so it's got a solid polling rate. It's really good. And with the combination of those, the Chatpad onto the controller, it gives you full functionality. Like I said, the only thing you can't do is if you were to go here into inventory and see, if you look on the right, I can go into my inventory and look at things and move it around. I just can't hit A or any button like I can on a mouse. Here, I'll grab my mouse and see, I can just click and drag. And click and drag. You don't have that functionality with a controller. I'm back on controller now. There's nothing I can do that click and drag. Not trigger, not A. It's just not programmed in. They don't have a subheading within the game for inventory management and button binding and things like that, and press to hold and double tap and things like that. So that functionality just isn't there. I've tried almost every option, and mind you, all this is being done. I'm not using Rewazd. I'm not using any exterior program whatsoever. This is just the controller connected to my PC with the chat pad into the controller and the dongle for the chat pad. That's it. There's no weird programming going on. There's no other downloads you need to make. There's no going into, and installing, Rewaz software or things like that. So I think for, just the functionality, if I'm here, what does it really matter? It's like, oh, well, okay, well, boom. I could just take those out and I can do things at my leisure and change my setup and, go back out or say I'm, say I'm in the middle of a bunker and I've killed all the enemies, you really don't have any kind of, time limit besides for leaving the zone within 30 minutes. It's a low stress situation. So your ability to be able to, go to a guy and, open up your inventory and, and grab a couple of guns, or maybe you found some cool armor, or, you're opening up a box and you need to transfer stuff like that. You can get away with it. So, all right, guys. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this. It was something that I've really been working on for a long time, and I know it's something a lot of people are probably interested in, especially with Squadron 42 coming up, because, are they going to make a full controller setup? I'm sure they will, but until they do, this works perfectly fine, and in my estimation, better than just trying to go through and wait, because, Squadron 42 is going to be, a single-player story game, so you should expect controller, compatibility in that. A game that's this complex with this many functions and things like that, it's a little hard. I mean, even if I were to, I'll just give you a quick view here under controls and game settings. So you go to key bindings. This is for a mouse and keyboard. Okay, almost every single button has multiple functions based on whether you're using Alt or you're using, F for interaction mode. So you can't really expect all that to get onto a controller nicely and neatly. You're going to have to leave some things out. But by putting that chat pad on there for the controller, when I go into the controller, I now have all these keybinds on there. But I also have the functionality of a twin stick for FPS or for, flight or something like that. So, you kind of get a good mix of the best of both worlds, So you can see how complex the controls are on the game. So it's just one of those things to where I really wanted to, be able to sit on the couch and hang out with my dog and, just fly around the verse and maybe do a little bit of mining, or maybe go clear a bunker, or, get a new blueprint or something like that. So it just really, it really helps the game, for multiple inputs to have multiple ways to play. I mean, 99.9% of the time, I'm playing on mouse and keyboard because I'm at my gaming station here on the desk with my monitors and OBS, and I'm, controlling everything and Discord and all that stuff. But sometimes I just want to play Star Citizen on the couch, and I'm just by myself. I'm just exploring the verse, hanging out and having a good time, It's just one of those things to where, it just opens the possibilities for the game. So I really hope everybody has enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it. I can tell you right now, the 890 jump is big and slow, as you can see. But I'm going to get used to it, figure out a function for the ship, and I will see everybody else in the verse. Thanks for joining the stream, everybody. Bye.